Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is Societal Narcissism. This video is sponsored by contribution from Teresa. Before I get to Teresa's video, please go to the description box, click on the Rumble link. I ask everybody to watch over there. I'm still monetized and will help out. On Teresa's video, she has sent in a video for me to review from the Black Pill channel, Devin Stack again. So here we go. This one's a little longer. It's about 40 minutes. I got it sped up to 1.25. If you have a problem following along, I suggest you turn on the subtitles. I'm also running the subtitles. It helps you follow it along much easier. Here we go.
Whenever you consume media, whether it's a movie, stand-up comedy, or even advertising, a good exercise is to identify who the target audience is. Sometimes it's obvious, and sometimes it's a little harder to decode, but it's always there. Nobody spends the time and money to make media, not even me, if they don't have at least some idea of who they're talking to. Unless you're a homeless person screaming on a street corner, you need to know who your audience is so you know how to talk to them. The way I talk to my mother, for example, is different than the way I talk to my internet company's customer service. We use different tones, different vocabulary and strategies so we can be more effective in communicating with the individuals we're talking to. Knowing the target audience will tell you a lot about the content that you're watching. The target audience for a show that I've ignored completely because I knew right away that I wasn't that target audience, and I had a pretty good idea of who that target audience was.
It's usually pretty obvious after all, who they're targeting and what they're after. I have no idea what this one is about, so.
And I pretty much consider them a lost cause because I'm talking about The Handmaid's Tale. And The Handmaid.
Let me say this right here. I'm just going to make this declarative statement, and I think I've made it before about The Handmaid's Tale. You see these women in a Handmaid's Tale outfit walking around like seriously acting like they're a handmaid or something. You're looking at a woman with an R-word fantasy. That's what it is. It's our fantasy. That's it. That's it. They want to feel that they are so attractive and they're so hot that men are going to force them. But they're the ugliest women out there. They're heinous. You can go on any website. I'll try to look it up. Try to find a Handmaid's Tale outfit in either XXL or higher, XXL. They're always sold out because it's always the fattest, ugliest women who are having these fantasies because nobody wants them. Nobody wants them. Handmaid's Tale.
Handmaid's Tale is a series that, if you don't know this, is being put out by Hulu, who I assume produced it specifically for cat ladies and low IQ feminists and their beta orbiters to fill the gaping hole that remains in their souls from the lack of having family or purpose. A hole that Hollywood used to fill with soap operas, novellas, to some extent reality TV, virtual worlds that give them a false perception of reality. And they are fake worlds. That's why people binge watch entire series in a few days, because they're escaping reality by immersing themselves totally in this fictional world. The structure of these shows is even designed around this idea. Instead of being content you can sit down and watch for one episode and enjoy 30 minutes and then get back to your life, this content is designed to be a non-linear and therefore a little more complicated or confusing, continuous story that's impossible to understand unless you've seen every episode from the beginning. And because the audience ends up spending hours and hours and hours with these fictional characters in this fake world, more time than they probably spend with a lot of their family members, they grow attached.
And here's something I'll say about The Handmaid's Tale. Okay. I've never watched it. My wife's never watched it. I don't know anybody who's actually watched it or read it. I think it was a book first. And I didn't read it or watch it. She didn't read it or watch it. I don't know anybody who has read or watched it. And I promise you, 90% of these losers wearing the Handmaid's uniform never read or watched it either. They don't even know.
To these characters and emotionally involved with them on some level, they feel as if they have a relationship with these fictional characters. If you don't believe me, just look at Twitter after one of these shows, like Game of Thrones is a good example. Look at Twitter after Game of Thrones kills off a character. People actually mourn the loss of these fictional characters, the loss of these characters from their virtual existence, like they would a family member.
And again, sorry, 79% boomers, not sorry. This is something, again, that was ingrained in us by the boomers. I've told the story of when I was 4 years old, the day Elvis Presley died. My mother threw herself on the floor of the plant room. I mean, this is like wailing. Oh my God, he's dead. Father comes running. Who's dead now? Elvis. And my father started making fun of him like that junkie because he hated him. He hated anything my mother liked, because, my mother made everything sexual and like, oh, he was so good looking. And my father, like, fake ODing on the floor and convulsing. Like, we weren't even sure how he died yet at the time, I don't think. Maybe they did. I mean, I was 4. That's boomers. Boomers started that shit. Caring more about celebrities that they don't know or fictional characters, okay, than they do about the people in their own lives, including their children.
On some rational level, but these are irrational people we're talking about. They might understand it's not real. But how is it possible that this kind of reaction is coming from a grown man watching a movie trailer unless he feels like he's literally in a relationship with the fictional characters he's viewing in this Star Wars trailer?
That's also clickbait too. He's looking for a connection with other people. Like, look how sensitive I am. That's what it is. Because these are just lonely people. Listen, we all binge watch shows. Like, it happens. We all binge watch shows. We don't react like this. There's a difference.
And Star Wars is a movie that took advantage of this format. And it has since the beginning. George Lucas even named the first Star Wars movie Episode 4, decades before he'd create Episode 1, 2, or 3, because he understood the power of this delivery system. The idea that you're coming into the story halfway. You have to start from the beginning. You have to understand the whole story. You have to watch all of them. And The Handmaid's
But at least Star Wars, it's science fiction, it's battle, it's war, it's not this. That's not to say some of these Star Wars freaks aren't completely insufferable too. Most of them. Like, I like Star Wars, but you'll never catch me watching it over and over and over again. But to be fair, I'm like that with the original Star Trek series. I could just watch that over and over and over again because it's brilliant storytelling. It's brilliant storytelling and brilliant writing, and it really was a look. You look at some of those episodes like Patterns of Force, which is a carbon copy of Joe Biden, a mentally incapacitated figurehead leader being controlled by other people on another planet. It's just brilliant. And Star Trek is based on how they got to the point where they're at, and they went through the World War III was a eugenics war. They talk about the danger of eugenics and population controls and all of it. It was such a brilliant look into what we're living through now. I beg some of you who haven't watched it, go back to the original Star Trek series and look at how relevant it is. Earth 2, Miri, which is Earth 2. They find a duplicate Earth, an exact exact copy of the planet Earth, where everybody's wiped out except the children. Why? Because they were trying to extend their life cycles, and all the adults wiped themselves out with these pills or however they did it. And only the children survived. And what they were trying to accomplish was you age 1 month for every 100 years. So these children they found on the planet were actually over 300 years old. And then, but what would happen is once they hit puberty, they would automatically then turn into these monsters that would die, become violent and die. Brilliant writing. Brilliant foresight into the future. That is not this. This is R-word fantasy. This is loser woman R-word fantasy.
Tale uses this same methadone drip delivery system to worm its way into the veins of its audience. An audience that's easy to identify if we just look at the main character, Offred, who is played by Elizabeth Moss. It's no accident that they picked an actress so unattractive. An actress who looks like Uma Thurman's short, chubby burn victim cousin after several botched reconstructive surgeries. I mean, this kind of ugly isn't on accident. That's
what it is. I mean, because that's what The Handmaid's Tale is written and made for. Ugly women. Oh, you're not ugly. Like you're not. Yeah, you are. Oh no, these men are gonna force themselves on you and make you carry their seed. Which, deep down, that's what they want. They want to be so desirable because they're not.
They cast her because she's not threatening to their demographic. It might even make some of the more degenerate and confused male members of the audience feel feminine.
No, they're reaching out to the ugly woman. They're reaching out to the ugly feminist. That's what this is.
She's non-threatening, relatable, and this is the vessel the audience will occupy as she walks us through this fictional world in The Handmaid's Tale. She's their avatar. So what kind of world is it? Well, again, that's also easy to figure out. Now that you know who the target audience is, Western women, what kinds of messages? Just
ugly, unattractive Western women. Unattractive Western women. Okay? You go look at those Handmaid Tale marches when they're cosplaying, marching around. Okay, you find me a halfway decent woman. Like maybe you find one or two wearing that outfit. Not happening. Not happening. Handmaid's Tale is cosplay for ugly feminists. That's what it is.
Just based on personal experience, what kind of messages do you think people like the show's creator, Bruce Miller, would want to insert into this virtual world? What kind of experiences would he want these?
The creator's a dude? The creator's a man. Think about that for a second. The creator, the writer, whatever it is, the writer of The Handmaid's Tale is a man. Ooh, okay.
These women to virtually experience. Within just the first few minutes of the first episode, we see one of the most common Hollywood cliches employed anytime the audience is perceived to be substantially female. And that, of course, is that Elizabeth Moss has a black husband and an interracial kid. No surprises there. I've covered this in other videos, and anyone paying even like a tiny bit of attention understands that this is something that's being memed hard for almost a decade now. I can also guess, without even waiting for it to happen, that they're being chased by evil white men. Another Hollywood trope that is paraded around in almost all content produced today. Ads for products, TV shows, and movies, they all follow this formula. Strong, powerful white women with tender, loving black men, persecuted by the evil white men. Evil white men that shoot her husband and take her child and beat her severely. All
until it's time to pay the toll. Till it's time to pay that toll.
To the sounds of ominous theatrical music. I mean, it feels like this cliche is the setup for literally half the content made in the last 2 years by Hollywood. So watching this, I'm already bored, but I persevered. I watched 2 seasons of this garbage, so you wouldn't have to. Now, I have to admit,
why?
I made liberal use of the fast forward button, which was actually pretty easy to do without missing anything, because not just because everything was so predictable, which it was, but because shows like this are cluttered with filler. Long shots of characters.
This is a show, not a... Okay, so there was a show, not a movie? I don't. Other than that stupid outfit, I don't know anything about it other than their demand, because they wear that outfit to demand abortion. That's what it's all about. They're going to force me. I'm going to be forced by the evil white man to carry his baby. Okay. Sure.
Staring off at nothing as ominous tones play in the background. It's honestly half the series is just like really long, boring, silent shots of people staring off into the distance. And by the way, that's also not unique to this series. There's a lot of stuff these days that gets produced and they have to fill in the time slot, so they just fill it full of that garbage. There's surprisingly little that actually happens per episode, but that's also part of the strategy. My mom used to watch...
Oh, it's surprisingly little that goes on in their lives. So maybe it's more accurate than you think. Kind of just depicts these women as what they are.
Soap operas in the 80s and 90s. And even as a kid, I noticed something about these shows that seemed to either elude or not bother the millions of boring women tuning in every day to watch. Soap operas are shot 5 days a week and aired 5 days a week. So they're making an episode every single day. It's just this constant churning out of content that can get repetitive or boring fast. So they developed a system.
And absurd. The thing about a soap opera, like your daily soaps, All My Children, Days of Our Lives, I don't even know if they're still around. I mean, we remember them. The thing about them is everybody knew they were completely absurd. The storylines are completely absurd in them, as are these women walking around. I mean, they're just as absurd.
That would keep women hooked. Monday through Thursday, every episode was building to some dramatic event that was supposed to take place any moment. And then when Friday rolled around, the writers would make it seem as if you'd finally get that payoff. They've been edging you all week, and now it was time for the big climax. And at the very end of the episode that would air on Friday, they would set up the big reveal. And just as you thought, you'd find out who killed the handsome millionaire that was cheating on his wife, or if the blonde with amnesia would remember her fiance's name, they would throw in a twist.
The blonde with amnesia. Like amnesia. Like how many amnesia storylines have there been in soap opera over and over and over again? What is the reality of amnesia? It's so rare. It's completely rare. But that's just the ridiculousness of it. You knew watching it, even back in the 70s and 80s, how over the top ridiculous it was.
The millionaire wasn't murdered at all. It was all just a trick to trap, dun, dun, dun.
Like, no, I'm sorry. Nobody was living their lives as what was her name? Susan Lu, Erica, I forget her last name on the show, as Erica. But yeah, everybody knew who she was. Everybody knew the Erica character, but nobody was trying to actively be an Erica. Like there was no Erica uniform to throw
on. Tune in Monday to find out. And the blonde with amnesia, she does remember her fiance's name, but now he's in love with dun, dun, dun.
Her brother. Like it was always something over the top, right? It was always something ridiculous.
Tune in Monday to find out. And that's the game. There's more effort put into the psychological mind games meant to trick you into watching just one more episode than there is put into the actual content itself.
Because they figured out how to activate that dopamine rush watching this stuff. It's brain candy.
Entire year of these soap operas that would air, again, 5 days a week, some of them an hour a day. An entire year of these shows could be compressed into like a 2-hour movie. But then they wouldn't be able to sell you dish soap every 5 minutes.
See? Comes in a pretty new plastic bottle. Gee, thanks.
These are just the modern day soap operas. The Handmaid's Tale, The Walking Dead, Game of Thrones.
The Walking Tears, as we call it. Like, The Walking Dead started off so good. And then to see what it became is just such a, like, I tapped out at the tiger. I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this. We call it The Walking Tears. They walk for 34 minutes, and then they all start crying. Like, what is this? What are we watching? And I know the tiger was in the story, but they just made it all so ridiculous.
They all use this exact same system. You just have to sit through all the slow motion shots of people crying long enough.
Thank you.
And we promise
Thank you.
Something will happen eventually. This will keep you watching just one more episode, and then I'll go to bed. Just one more episode, and then I'll go to work. It becomes like this drug.
Dopamine.
And if the filmmakers are trying to imprint something on your soft little mind, this is the perfect way to do it. Deliver the subversive message in tandem with your dopamine payoff. And once your mind builds this association, that shit is in your head forever. Especially if you're one of these weak-minded fans of the show that treat the characters like real people. So after The Handmaid's Tale opens with the violent abduction scene, we launch into what we assume is the future. A terrifying and completely implausible future that can only come, quite frankly, from the fevered female mind of a paranoid feminist or an indelicate fearmonger, or both. In this fictional world, there's been some sort of war in the United States, and now the lovely Offred and other women have been forced to work in the homes of the elite, who in Offred's case is the much better looking, not that that's hard to do, Yvonne Stravosky, who's so beautiful, she's beautiful enough to intimidate and threaten the female target audience and even the low-status males that have been forced into watching this show with them.
But why is she able to threaten them? Just by her beauty, just by her looks. It's they're catering to these feminists' jealousy. They're feeding their jealousy. They're hoping to feed it into rage. But what I don't think they realize, what the creators don't realize, is they want to be this woman so bad. They want to be in her situation worse than anything. They want to be so seen as so hot and so desirable that men will just take them. They just have to have them. Like I said, go try to find a Handmaid's Tale costume in a XXL or larger. Okay, they're always sold out. Always. It's another meme. It's another meme. Oh, by the way, because you all know what a shit poster I am on X, and I redesigned the Handmaid's uniform. I'll show you at the end of the video. It's fire. It's fire.
We also meet the man of the house briefly and get the idea that Offred is their servant of some sort, and this is her new job. We meet another servant who seems to be a maid that prepares meals and cleans the house. She sends Offred to the store to get food, and we gather we aren't in America anymore, at least the America we know, when Offred is given these strange stamps to purchase food. Outside, we meet
See, and again, I know nothing about the store. All I know about Handmaid's Tale is they put on that costume to go demand to kill their own babies. That's it. I didn't know about any of this. This is a window into the writer's mind, though. Okay, because this is another projection, because they know what they're doing is pushing society and they're pushing us hard, and they fully expect this type of backlash. They do. They are confused how it hasn't happened already.
Another servant. This is actually a male. He's the chauffeur, and so he's not oppressed with the Puritan garb that the women are forced to wear. On the way to the store, we discover more about this strange world. Offred is required to walk with a partner. She is paranoid that her counterpart is spying on her. The streets are lined with the evil white guys with fashy haircuts and high-powered rifles. They cautiously exchange small talk, but they all
Sounds like communism to me. Sounds like communism to me. Even the red outfit, red for Marxist communists. They don't get it. They don't get it. It's not a coincidence that both the Nazis and the communists adopted basically the same colors. Weird, huh? Weird.
also talk about, or at least reference, a war that's going on, and it becomes obvious this is, geographically at least, America, and this is during some kind of civil war. The evil white guys have taken control and have subsequently enslaved the women, placing them in positions like these two and the cook back at the house. This much is clear. There seems to be also a religious aspect to it all, because the greetings people use and the way they speak has a religious tone to it. It's funny because the makers of this series are clearly implying
a religious tone, but not religion. What does that sound like? Communism, Marxism. It's just a substitute for religion. The writer don't get it. These women putting on the costume don't get it. And they never will.
That this oppressive religious movement is rooted in Christianity, when it was Islam and the treatment of women in Arab countries that actually inspired the author originally to write the book that this series is based on, not Christianity.
Oh, really? Well, that makes sense too.
Regrettably has lost control of its women. And
because Islam has gravitated towards communism and Marxism anyway, so it is a natural progression. Yeah, Trump got a much larger portion of the Islamic vote in 2024, but that's only because they don't like the trans stuff. They don't like the gay stuff. They ain't having that. We know what happens in these countries, in these Muslim countries, to gays and the treatment of women.
And committed the society-ending sin of giving the women political power. But nope, that's the great thing about leftist memes, about fiction. You can change reality however you want. Islam has nothing to do with oppression of women in this fictional world. But instead, it's these Christians. Everything sounds very biblical, and the characters often quote mangled passages of the Bible. Right, so far,
projection.
The target audience has been presented the following themes. Number one is the basic Hollywood, black men are protectors and good fathers and good people to have children with. Number two is, again, the Hollywood cliche. White men are scary. And
let me ask you something. If it's such a Christian and Christian theological society, if it's such a Christian theological society and it's so oppressive, why would they even allow black men to marry women in this world? Seems like a kind of big plot hole, doesn't it? Like, well, wait a minute, but she can still get married, even though to a black guy, even though they're these this oppression, this oppressive regime, this oppressive Christian regime, yet they allow white women to marry black men? Seems like an awfully big plot hole, does it not?
Want to oppress you. And number three, Christianity is the dangerous vehicle behind all of this. So in terms of the typical Hollywood messaging, we're off to a good start, considering this is only the first episode. When Offred and her companion walk home from the store, the two handmaids walk past several men hanging from nooses. And I'm not going to lie, but I'm starting to like these guys. All right, we find out that they were hung because one was a priest, one was an abortion doctor, and one was gay. Well, 2 out of 3 ain't so bad. I'm joking, of course. But the funny thing is about this show is the main character becomes so intolerable and unlikable.
Well, if it's a Christian society, why would they hang a priest?
It really wasn't long before I was angry watching the show for no other reason than I knew that no matter what happened, it would never be her hanging from the wall. I mean, there'd be no show, right? If they hung her, but it seemed like they were constantly hanging everyone around her for almost nothing compared to the trouble that she causes all the time. Which I was thinking about it, that actually really plays well into this this oblivious female self-importance of the audience. And I'll get more into that later. So now that we've extracted who the target audience is, the messaging that's going to be delivered to them, the behavior of the characters is also pretty easy to predict simply because you know their actions come from the minds of writers who think this scenario is probable. Okay? That Christians would rise up, take over America, enslave women, hang the heretics. Well, actually, I kind of hope this is possible. It's something I pray for every day. But the circumstances and the details are what make this ridiculous. They always tell writers, only write what you know. And it's easy to tell, just like with most content from Hollywood, that these people don't know the first thing about the right. Not the way they think, what they value, like literally nothing. Absolutely nothing.
No, because it's an exercise in projection. They're telling you what they think. That's all it is. It's projection.
So what we get is this perverse mutation that's even further removed from reality so that the writers can make it seem even scarier and more traumatic than how they perceive the right in their own contorted view. In other words, if your view of the right is already like this weird cartoonish demon view of them, and then your goal is to demonize them, you're going to go over the top with it because your perception of reality is over the top. So if you're trying to augment something that's already in Crazy Town to be a slightly, artistically enhanced, it just gets real unbelievable fast. But again, their target audience isn't going to know because the target audience has the exact same perception of the right. So it just fits right in with their CNN view of reality. Offred has a flashback to her time back at what seems like a right-wing re-education camp, if only. Right. In this camp, we find out that the driving force behind the conflict in this fictional world. Apparently, fertility rates are dropping. Something that isn't exactly fictional, okay? This large, angry woman addressing the camp tells the women that even with the dropping fertility rates, and she doesn't specify who they are, they made it worse by coming up with birth control pills and abortion, which again is...
Well, it's not wrong. You know, I said this about my first wife. Something happened when she got on birth control. It did. I didn't put my finger on it until pretty recently, when I started realizing the hormonal changes and started reading about it. Like, because she had been on birth control for years. She's on birth control for a year. I don't know what she's on now, but for years. And when she started taking it, it was like just this personality change in her.
That's not wrong. You know, time and time again, watching this, I keep finding myself on the side of the so-called bad guys.
Right.
But I also know that the scary music.
It's kind of like Law Abiding Citizen, if you know that movie with Gerard Butler and Jamie Foxx, where, you know, the writers and they were like blown away in the movies because the guy who was supposed to be the bad guy, Clive, everybody was rooting for. Everybody. It was the worst ending to a movie ever. It was such a great movie until the end.
And the frowning of the women are literally that's all the social cues the weak-minded target audience needs to know. Oh, this is poisonous, bad. Who cares that the birth rates are falling? And abortion's awesome. I need to preserve that. Can't let the evil white men take that away from us.
Exactly.
Look at how dangerous these right-wing people are. They want to take our abortions and birth control pills away. And
so this is where the abortion angle comes from. Why these losers keep putting on the costume
and put us in camps and blame us for the low birth rate. The gall. And now we get to the really insidious aspect of this The Handmaid's Tale. Now, we're about to learn in a few moments here. The Handmaid's Tale, the basic plot line behind it is these handmaids are part of a breeding program to help the low birth rates. But what the audience is too stupid to understand, in most cases, is that this show, this heavy-handed messaging, is part of a breeding program. The target audience is women who have a huge influence on the breeding and reproduction in the West. If you want to control reproduction without kicking down doors or doing something that's going to set off a war, you have to influence the women with the fertile wombs. You influence the women with the wombs, you influence the breeding, you influence the demographics, you influence power. Think about it. This isn't hard. This isn't hard to understand. Humans selectively bred wolves, generation after generation, until they got dogs. They did the same thing to horses and to cows. They wildly changed significant characteristics so that these animals would become more useful. And if you think the ruling class doesn't want to implement some of these same selective strategy practices on the working class, quite frankly, it might be too late for you. You might be a product of this system.
And what's the purpose? To die? So what do they really want? Do they want to die off? If there's a fertility crisis, and that's that's really what you're dealing with when you're dealing with the left. You're dealing with people who are anti-humanity, who are so broken and so damaged within themselves. They want to take out humanity with them.
This is easy to understand. We're talking about people, they want very much to breed out competition.
Right.
And to breed in traits that are going to make people more docile, more obedient, more domesticated. Let's face it, they don't want a population that has a very long history of overthrowing tyranny with force.
Right. Because what's the purpose of this? The purpose is to do what they say is being done to them, but they're actually implementing it themselves.
They want timid people who show up for work, gather around the water cooler and discuss what happened in the latest episode of the virtual world they live in, push the buttons, pull the levers, go home, and do it again the next day like good little debt slaves and wage slaves. These people are the farmers, and we're talking about their cattle here. Of course, they're going to try to influence the breeding. They're going to try to influence the breeding in a way that results in the kinds of traits they'd like to see in their cattle, just like any farmer would do. That's why they're promoting lifestyles and mental disorders that result in fewer or no offspring from the groups they see as threats.
Because nobody wants to have offspring with them. So they want to make sure nobody has offspring. They don't want to be reminded of their own failures.
Understand that. It's no coincidence that simultaneously they're creating conditions that will promote the breeding and increase the offspring of the people that produce cattle with the attributes that are most beneficial to them. And this show, The Handmaid's Tale, is literally a part of that program. The sad reality is, though, that the irrational audience will never piece that together. Instead, they'll watch this show and absorb the takeaways like dried up sponges.
Because they're not watching it, for that purpose. They're watching it so they have ammunition to go out and use against that man who doesn't want them in the first place. That's what the purpose of this is.
That black men are the protectors and good fathers to have children with. White men are scary and want to oppress you. Christianity is the dangerous engine behind it all. Birth rates plummeting is all just fiction. Abortion and birth control is a secret right that must be protected from the evil white men. Childbirth itself is evil, forced, and oppressive. Offred's best friend, who she spots in the camp, isn't just black, but also a lesbian. Double inclusion points. The two listen as they're told about the breeding program.
I didn't. Yeah, I didn't know any of this because I didn't know any of this.
They are to serve as surrogates for the nation's elite. They will conceive and carry their children in an effort to combat the failing birth rate. Once again, I want to interject something here. If the nation's birth rate is plummeting as far as they say it is in this fictional world, what would be wrong with some kind of program that proactively promoted children?
Exactly. That's exactly the point I just made. We're dying off. So what do you want? Because they're anti-humanity. Because nobody wants them. So they want to make sure they take out humanity with them.
The Mormons did exactly this. When they settled Utah, they began to practice polygamy. And with many men having like 5 or 6 wives and each wife having 5 or 6 children, they were able to populate an otherwise desolate state pretty quickly. When the Mormons did this, the church leaders would usually assign the wives to men based on their ability to provide more children. The only reason they even stopped the practice was because the federal government got involved. They told illegal. The Mormons that they couldn't grant Utah statehood unless they ceased the practice of polygamy. The same way, by the way, that Trump pretends he's going to cut off funding to sanctuary states and cities, only to not cut off funding, but to instead give them even more illegals who will forever change the demographics and the balance of political power in the country. The whole time conservative shitwits tweeting, LOL, MAGA, Trump owns the libs again. While we just get decimated in this country demographically, but I digress. One of the girls in the camp mouths off and is hit with a cattle prod. Damn, I like their style. And then is dragged off somewhere. Here's where I'm going to mention another aspect of the show that, the irony will be completely lost on the irrational audience. This dystopian future where evil men are they're oppressing women.
We're already here.
In a lot of ways, is completely run by women.
Yeah.
That's right. This militant lady who trains the handmaids to be good little baby-making slaves.
Always is. Always is. I made this point about Islam. It was brought up earlier. Whenever you see one of the, like, take Iran or Saudi Arabia, any of these countries that have these morality squads that are taking women off for arresting women for not wearing the burqa, for not covering their hair, when they're being dragged off, who's leading them? Who's pointing them out? It's always a woman. It's always a woman. This is why I say Islam, for all the bad rap it gets, rightfully so. Okay, and they think it's this male oppressive society. No. They don't realize it, because I've made this point so many times. That woman will gladly put on a burqa and take an ass kicking, so long as that pretty bitch she hates is wearing one and taking that ass kicking too. You got to understand the motivation behind these women.
Is one of the most powerful figures in the whole fictional world. The men standing around everywhere with guns, they don't even have names. Most of the time, they don't even talk. They're basically like the faceless stormtroopers in Star Wars. Even the commander, Offred's boss, who we met in the beginning of the episode, he depends on his wife to help him run things. And we figure out later she was largely responsible for the political movement that led to the revolution to begin with. But nope, it's the men. The men are the problem.
And that's reality. And that is the point I have been making over and over again. You look at the most brutally run states, save Illinois and California, the most brutally run countries, they're run by women. The female politicians, the female Democrat liberals are the most brutal women out there.
They're not just the problem. They all want to rape you too. And there's a whole lot of rape in the show. The first one takes place when we see the ceremony designed to impregnate Offred as she plays her part in the role of handmaid to the commander. Once again, the Bible makes an appearance, and the ceremony consists of reading passages from the Bible and then raping the handmaid while your wife holds her down. And again, it's still part of this paradox.
It's the fantasy. That's the rape fantasy. We're well into the video, so I can say it now. It's rape fantasy. because they want to be her. They want to be so desirable that are going to hold you down to take you and make you carry my seed.
Somehow women are nothing but slaves, but there seems to be a whole lot of participation from women. And I'm sorry, I got to say this, simply from a productivity
And that's
standpoint,
reality.
having women slaves is really kind of useless.
Mm-hmm.
Women aren't construction workers for a variety of reasons. But once again, these are all things that slip right past the irrational audience.
Right. Who's building it all? It ain't the women are the women building the buildings? Are the women making the weapons? Are the women doing all? No, it's all men.
Who really shouldn't be allowed to vote. If you like this show, you should not be allowed to vote ever. So time passes and we find out that the woman who got shocked.
There's that 19th Amendment coming in again, right?
With the cattle prod has now got her eye gouged out and subsequently learned to behave. And this is one of those inconsistencies that's also frustrating. They gouge out her eye simply because she mouthed off. And Offred here goes way above and beyond that kind of disobedience, earning what would probably be several death sentences, one right after the other, if there was any kind of consistency. But nothing ever happens to her. But it kind of makes sense if you think about the target audience. Once again, think about who's watching this. A group with no sense of personal responsibility that thinks that they can just go through life being awful and nothing will ever happen to them. And why shouldn't they believe this in the real gynocentric dystopia that we live in today? Nothing ever does. So it's impossible for them. It would be totally impossible for them to relate to Offred if she was getting punished for what she does. I'm not going to go through the entire series. It's obviously way too long. But I am going to point out a few things I remember that bothered me the most. One, we find out that Offred not only is promoting the cliche Hollywood multiracial family thing, we find out that her black husband was married to a black woman when they met. So she broke up their marriage. And she knew he was married. So she knew he was married, destroyed his marriage. And again, this is promoting even more behavior.
But how would this be allowed in this type of society in the first place? It doesn't even make sense. Why would they be allowed to marry anybody, let alone a black man, in this type of society? It's a huge plot hole.
That's not a winning breeding strategy for white women. Number two, when they find out that one of the women is a lesbian, they circumcise her. That's right, the evil Christians do that. And the only time, not Islam, the only time that Islam is ever mentioned, ever, in this show, is when Offred runs away, one of the many times she runs away, and gets chased, and is saved by an Islamic family who, surprise, surprise, is also interracial in the exact same way.
Why would an Islamic family even be allowed to exist anymore? If they're so against interracial marriages and minorities, why would they even be allowed to exist in this type of society? Why? If all they want to have is white babies, white Christian babies, why would they even allow them to exist? They're going to hang a priest, but they're going to allow the black guy to impregnate a white woman. They're going to allow the Islamic family to even exist. It makes no sense.
Her family is. What are the odds of that? So number three, Offred also starts screwing the servant guy. This is after she finds out her husband is still alive. So it's kind of funny because early on in the movie, they make this lame attempt to show the culture shifting to this like toxic masculinity, something right wing. Offred and her black lesbian friend get called sluts.
Fucking sluts, get the fuck out of here.
By some random white male, of course, barista, and they act, super offended. But then you find out they're both basically sluts. Like the black lesbian girl hooks up with random women she meets at the club while her girlfriend is at home. She hooks up with women she doesn't know the names of. And then after the revolution ends, she winds up choosing to be a prostitute. Offred, on the other hand, she sluts her way into another woman's marriage, starts banging the servant guy, and it doesn't stop even after finding out for sure that her husband is alive. whose previous marriage she ruined. You know, that guy, it's still alive. So they're both basically sluts. This guy is totally based in red pilled.
Fucking sluts, get the fuck out of here.
And there's the proof. Like, they want to be desirable. They want to be sluts. But in reality, no one wants them. No one wants them. This is cosplay. This is rape fantasy. It's what it is.
Number 4, they can't stop shitting on white people, like, ever. Even in the tiniest subtle ways. Like when we find out this girl who, surprise, surprise, is also a lesbian and a strong, powerful biology professor. She's teaching a class before the revolution comes. And some evil white guy tries to mansplain, only to get totally owned by the genius black girl. I mean, it's death by 1,000 cuts. It's just constant. It never ends. In fact, if you see a black guy in the movie, before they even say anything, you can just assume, oh, he's going to like save the day somehow. He's good. Like it's automatic, without fail.
That's
and it works.
reality,
you got
right?
the emotional thinking cattle addicted to your victimization porn. You stir up all their worst fears with images of rape and scary music, and then you tell them over and over and over again, it's this evil white guy. It's him. He's the fault. And but not the black guy. He's going to save the day. In some ways, it feels a little repetitive, saying this over and over again, but I don't think a lot of people realize just how pervasive it is. Number 5, another amusing aspect is how they show the early days of the revolution, kind of taking the women by surprise. So, for example, the based and red-pilled revolutionaries, they ban women from working, which is kind of awesome. And so one day they're all just sent home from work unexpectedly. And they're totally confused. They're just totally baffled that this could even happen. And my takeaway from this was, in a hilarious way, it kind of shows these women don't pay attention to politics, but probably still vote and fancy themselves activists. The move to ban women.
Right. How are you blind? If you're in a revolution, like this, just one day a switch hit and all of a sudden women are being scooped up and put in the Handmaid's uniform. And like, it doesn't even make sense. Like, you didn't see this coming? You had no idea? Really?
The workplace. And I hope I live to see that day.
Me too.
It wouldn't just happen one day with zero warning. In fact,
exactly.
It probably couldn't happen at all without a lot of violence. So to see these characters completely puzzled that this could just sneak up on them, and to me, it just made them look politically incompetent. Like they shouldn't be allowed to vote if they're that out of touch with what's going on that they don't even see this coming.
That's reality.
They shouldn't be part of the process. And then the second part to that is, it does also kind of illustrate something else about normies that many of us on the right have been saying for a while now, and that is, things will have to get way worse before they get better. Like the average, it'll seem like whatever bad thing happens, in this case, the women are kicked out. Well, I mean, to some people that's bad, are kicked out of the workplace. It's going to have to be something substantial like that, something extreme like that. The average normie, especially women, they're like the women in this show, completely, utterly clueless about the world around them. And quite frankly, they won't be motivated to act. They won't be motivated to actually do anything that might disrupt their steady stream of pointless cubicle work, happy hours, Tinder dates, and garbage TV like this show, unless something drastic happened. Something that might necessarily have to threaten those pillars of their existence. It wasn't really the intent of the creators to make this point, but it also wasn't the intent of the creators for someone like me to watch this and be tricked by any of it. I'm not the target audience. And because I'm not the target audience, I could go on and on and on and on and point out stuff over and over and over again. But it's so predictable. I think at this point you get the idea. The Handmaid's Tale is just this subversive, to the core, victimization porn. Quite frankly, if you have loved ones that are watching this electric brain cancer, it shouldn't be tolerated. You should just tell them no.
Yep.
It's time to be a man and start putting your foot down and being at least half as effective as the boogeymen that their propaganda makes us out to be. For Blackpilled, I'm Devin Stack. If you like my videos, make sure you like and subscribe.
But that's what they want. I fully believe that. They want it. because they live off the victimization. I'm glad he watched it so I didn't have to. Like, again, I had no idea. I had no idea about any of this. I really didn't. I didn't, because I never read it. I never watched it. I didn't. You just see the stupid uniform. And they love that uniform. So, let me show you here. But I did update the uniform on X, and, you know, it's very, very popular. Hold on. Let me find this here. Hold on. Here we go. Isn't this better? Hold on. Isn't that nicer? I made this. I made this. Isn't that a nicer uniform? That uniform is fire. Nice cheeseburger, watching football. Okay, here's the other one. Here's the other one. Much better. Isn't that much better? Doesn't that look nice? I like it. I'm down. I'm down. How about all of you? So, you know what? I think I'm just going to make this the thumbnail for the video. Why not? Why not, everybody? So, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you, Teresa, for your contribution and the clip and the video. I really do appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions in the comments section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, something you want to expose, you'd like to set up a Skype phone call, have a private video made, you'd like to sponsor a video like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you. Without you guys, all this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with either the Cash App, Zelle, PayPal, and email links in the description box below. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. Also, be sure to subscribe to both my channels on Rumble. If you haven't watched the video over there, please do. Even a click helps. Follow me on X and Telegram as well. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been Societal Narcissism. Take care, everyone.